Good morning, friends, and welcome to this webinar on blockchain technology for procurement and supply chain. The term blockchain has been for many years around, but it came into the prominence, if I say, it was in 2009. During the recession time in the US, 2009, it came into prominence. And the very first, I would say, the poster boy was Bitcoin, the cryptocurrencies. But later on, it found its ways into many applications. I was also involved in some apps around. It came into the health sector. It was used for elections. It was used for keeping the record of the properties and assets around. So it has found its path in many fields around. Now, if I say blockchain, what exactly it is, basically a ledger. It's a digital ledger. Then you say, guys, let's say, what is so big about it? The ledger has been for many years. Hundreds of years back, even before computerization, we used to have a ledger. For everything, it was recorded. But this ledger has some differences around. First thing is digital. Second is immutable. Nobody can change it. Nobody can hack it. Today, when we have the ledgers around, which are done through the intermediary, anybody can change the data. Suppose if I'm the one having the data of all of you, and I'm the central authorities, I can change the data. But in this case of being blockchain technology, it's more like a democratic system. Nobody can change it. It's based on consensus. So it's a ledger, which is immutable. And you can obviously, the purpose is to record the transactions, track the assets, build a trust. So this is a very democratic concept around. There are peers, there are partners in the network, everybody's involved in the consensus. That consensus gives us the trust. It came into the limelight recently again in India during the budget time. If you see during the budget time of India last month, every day some news were coming around that India is getting into something about cryptocurrencies, and then we came into the limelight for, I would say, the e-currency. Digital currency, which many countries have already done. So that's the one we are moving into, the digital currency, which is based again on blockchain technology. But the next bigger killer application, if I talk around, is supply chain. Somebody will say, why supply chain? Supply chain, if you look at the global economy today, supply chain covers the 2/3 of the global economy. So if we can have a truth, today, I think we all are suffering with the truth of the things around. I get a food, I'm not sure it is coming through pesticide. Is it organic? Nobody knows it. Because the data is managed by one company. They can change it. You and me are getting the medicines. We are not sure about the authenticity of the medicine. The people who are buying jewelry, they don't know whether jewelry is a fake or original. You can imagine around many of the things which affects our health, which affects us, we are all the time suffering about the truth of it. Even the news now. The news are coming through the social media. We don't know the truth of it. Somebody makes it a fake news and it spreads to millions of people, to billions of people. So the whole story is about the truth part. And the blockchain is the one, the technology, which I will try to explain around how it ensures the truth of it. Nobody can hack it. Because it is shared across the whole network. And everybody is a part to it. If it's depending on it's a public or a private network, it has a truth in it. It uses what we call as a cryptography, which ensures, and once you're using the cryptography, it ensures that nobody can hack it. So these are the key things which I think builds the trust in us and makes it impossible to change it. I would say again, hack the data or cheat the system, which is possible in our today digital system. Because digital systems are again controlled by one or two people or whatever may we call around, they can change the data. It's a revolutionary technology for digital transformation. And that's the reason you will see, I have underlined it, it's a match made in heaven. We all are needing the truth. We all need to know the real state of affairs. So that's what I call around, particularly from the supply chain side, I call it a match made in heaven. Now, coming back to the next things, what I plan to do is, as I said in the earlier part, we'll talk about what is blockchain technology, why use blockchain. There are many technologies available around. Why? What differentiates it from the others? How does it work? What are the challenges of this technology? When to use blockchain? And understanding smart contract. This particular word is picking up in a big way because the contracts are there. But if contract can be programmed with different milestones, suppose if I've got a contract of $500 million and I'm dealing in, and the project cycle is maybe around 2 years, I want to manage the contract. There are thousands of activities around, and maybe much more number of payments to be involved around. If I want to manage the contract, I can program it. And that's what I'm calling as a smart contract. The role in procurement supply chain, I'll try to go through some examples on the use in the procurement and supply chain. Particularly, I can see in India, many people are using it in the food chains, health chains, wherever you want to see the authenticity, people have started making use of it. Now let's get back to the basic thing. What is blockchain? As I said to you in the very beginning, it's a digital record. It's a digital ledger. Now the name comes from its structure in which individual records are called blocks. Each record is called a block. The block can cover up to 4,000 transactions, 1 megabytes transaction, you could call it out, depending on the size of the transaction. Now, each block has got transactions. Those of you who are involved in procurement supply chain, at the end of the day, there is a transaction. Somebody makes a requisition, somebody approves it, somebody sends the offer to you, you make a purchase order, each is a transaction. So those transactions are nothing but I'm calling as a block, depending on the size of the transaction. So those blocks are connected together. I send the requisition, somebody approves it, then somebody after approval makes a purchase orders around, all are connected to it. So there's a string of all the blocks around, and these strings are connected through the leverage of, I would say, the cryptography through the hash system, so they cannot be changed. If I change one, I have to change the whole string. That's why it makes it impossible to change. The data is immutable. So you can say unable to change. I'm not saying impossible, but it's unable to change. The blockchain is a new type of data. So in the beginning, I said it's basically a ledger. Yes, ledger is also database. It's a new type of data. Like saying email is a new way of sending letters. In the good old days, we used to send letters. Now we do with the email. The same way you can say this database is different than the original data, old data. Now you can again mimic it with the wedding ceremonies, like in the good old days, people used to do the marriage. They never recorded anywhere, but then there was a group who sees them and the groups authenticate them, they are married. That's the way concepts around. So here also we're trying to think of, again, a democratic approach. So here it shows the blocks. Each block is a transaction. So any transaction for a particular activity, a particular project, they all can be connected together. In the process, it becomes a chain. Earlier it used to be called block, but now we're calling as a blockchain. Blockchain is a one word. The story of this one, I mean, the technology has been very old. I'm not saying it is the first time it came in 2008, but the blockchain history, if I look around for application, it started in 2008. And then the very first application was the cryptocurrencies. The technology was available, but the application came in 2009, it was launched. Now the flow of blockchain. Each transaction happens means you're going to block. Now each block is connected to one another. So the block mean again, there are, let's say 20, 30 peers who are affected by this activity. They're all in the chain. And everybody gives a consensus. You guys, okay, I agree with this. The transactions are blocked together. And each block is added to the, you can say like a brick wall. If I want to change particular block, I have to throw the whole brick wall and then rebuild it. So that's why it makes it impossible to change. So the block is a record, as said in the very beginning, literal sense, very similar to database. It can hold a group of information. The size of the data, it could be like the name, address, contract information. All of you are very conversant. Because we make many spreadsheets around, a lot of data are there around. All the data can become transactions. So size could be 1 megabyte. If the information is too small, then I can have up to 4,000 transactions into one block. So blockchain, so what is a blockchain? Simple, each block header is a field of reference. So one block, which was started, the first one, has a header, and header has a reference. The next block which comes up around has a hash key and is able to connect it. It won't happen that the block of one goes to another one. No, they're all connected through, because they belong to a particular project, belong to particular activities around. So they have a hash key which connects them together. Traditional system, if you look around, is centralized today. Suppose if I'm your supplier and you are my buyer, you're all connected together, then there are many other suppliers involved around. And then ultimately we are all going to the bank. So bank is a central authority. While in the blockchain system, all are in the circle. They are distributed. They are decentralized. So information is available to everyone. And same information is available to everyone. Here you can see in the centralized one, the ledger is available, the truth is available only in the central place. Here, the same ledger is available to everyone, it's a replica. So there's nothing to fight around, no errors. Now, again, here, same things that we have centralized versus decentralized. Now, if you look around the centralized system, we always thought is very trusted authority. But what happened during the 2008, 2009 worldwide, people said, guys, we can't believe on the trusted institutions around. So that's what it came into the blockchain network around. So we have network of peoples, they join together. Anything we do, everybody gives a consensus around, is a truth. And then one can track and trace from where it started around. So in short, again, I would call around distributed network. On top of it, it could be decentralized also. But sometimes what happens if it is decentralized and distributed, the speed becomes slower. Some people go with the distributed one, but then the decentralization part, they do it depending on the, not to everybody in the whole public, but depends on who are the basically beneficial. So blockchain inherently is distributed. That means the same copy is available to many of them. The ledger copy is exactly the same. It's a mirror image with everybody. It's inherently decentralized. That means anybody can access it. Particularly when it comes to currencies, when it comes to cryptocurrencies, anybody can access it. There are two different working systems, decentralized, single processing method. While in the case of distributed, there are multiple points of decision making. So this is the same thing has been shown around here, very centralized. Then we have the one decentralized, the public ones, and the central one is centralized to some extent. Look around the difference around. Here is a system where I've got many players who are involved in this. And in these players, everybody is dealing with each other. Tons of informations are going around. And nobody has the truth still, except the intermediary. While in the case of blockchain, I've got the counterparties, I've got party A, party B, party C, auditors, bank records. In the first one, if you look around, everybody has a ledger, but the ledger information may not match. But here, everybody has exactly the same replica. You can imagine around the same ledger everybody has, the look and the feel of the fund. All parties have the same replica. So that means that shows there's a consensus. We don't waste time in fighting out. Then provenance, which is the truth, is there. Immutability, nobody can change it. As you saw, the blocks are made one over another one. So when the blocks are raised around, if I want to change the data, I want to change the transaction, I want to change the address, I want to change the name or amount, I have to remove the block. That means I have to disturb the whole blockchain, which is impossible. So this is what it shows, the finality, that whatever you see is a final thing. Now let's come to this, how does it work around? At its core, basically, it brings together the ecosystem of part for every activities around, whether you're placing orders, whether you're contracting, whether you're doing election, whether you're creating e-currency, any activity you do around. There's an ecosystem. The ecosystem of partners who will choose to collaborate. This guys, okay? Suppose you belong to a very big companies around and has got millions of people working for that companies around, and there are many people who are the ecosystem. So all of them, they join together. Many activities we do, there's a truth behind it. Then all of them choose to collaborate to address the efficiency. Yeah. And then there are 4 tenets. One, obviously, is the shared immutability. Visibility is there. Information is shared to all. Let's say if I'm working with one big name, let's say brand name X group around, and they've got 40 companies. And each company is doing procurement. Each company has got its own supply chain. And there's a lot to share together around. So we could have a combined ecosystem of partners. So any activities we do, they're also part of it. They know very well what we are buying. We have a common long-term agreements, which is shared by all the companies. The shared immutability, visibilities. There's a privacy. Smart contracts, which I said to you is becoming very popular nowadays, particularly if I have got a contract of big one, let's say 40 million, 50 million, and the time period is around 2 years, 3 years. I've got 100 of subcontractors working for me. I've got different milestones to pay for it. With the existing system, it's difficult. Then somebody can play with it. But in this case, in the smart contract, I can program the contract. Contract is what? Is a set of activities. And those activities, I can program it. If you complete these milestones, and we define the milestone by the program, and then the payment is made. Second milestone, this is the set of activities. If it is done, and computers agrees, the guys, okay, the goods receipt note has been made, purchase order has been made, invoices is matching, process the payment. In the trust and the consensus. And this one is typically, I would say, because we are leveraging the cryptography, the hash system. So each block has a number, has a timestamp, and the next one comes, gets connected with that to the hash. And hash is also created through algorithmic to mathematically. Computer generates. You and me are not generating. System generates. So that becomes identity for us. Now the hashing part, I think this is a very important part because this is the one which makes the system very foolproof. Now let's understand how it is. Good old days, we had the ledger. Ledger is nothing but, again in the blockchain, each page of the ledger is nothing but a block. I've got 40 pages notebook. I'm keeping a record of X transaction, Y transaction. But those transactions, if I go line by line, each page I could call, let's say my block is a 1 page, which is a 1 megabyte. So each page is nothing but my block. So I create first block around, then I put to next page, another block, third block, fourth block, like this. Maybe hundreds of blocks around connected through hash. And header contains information like technical information, reference to the previous block around, number. It's more like a fingerprint. So it's a digital fingerprints, which we are calling as hash. So the very good old days, which we used to have ledger, and I'm calling the ledger is not digital ledger, and each page is my block. So if you can see the picture here, block number 1574 as a block hash. Then we have 1575. It's obviously able to connect with that. If you look at the second block, the previous hash, ending with 71, and here was again 71, it gets connected. So all blocks are connected. And hash numbers are created mathematically by the system itself. So here's a block, again, there's a timestamp. Asset transaction data are there. Previous hash number is there. Unique cryptographic signature. Now, here comes the issue of when we make the transaction, you have got two keys around, public key, private key. It is more like our emails. If I send the email to you and you might know my email address, I'll say, guys, send a message to me. My email address is this. I'm giving the public key to you. Now, to open this, you need your own password setup. So the same story happens here also. You have a public key, you have a private key. So public key is the mean I'm sharing with you my address, email address, and you're able to open it. Here also you have information and then you're able to open it. So when I push my email message around, it's encrypted. You're only able to know once you know if I send to you. If I know that, okay, this is your email, I send to you. Then you have your own private key, you're able to open it. You're able to decrypt. The same story happens here also. So these two together become the digital signature, which allows you to open it. So whenever any information goes, it's encoding, decoding, depending on, you can correlate with your email system. Very simple way to remember it. And that's what we're calling as a cryptographic arrangement. Now, how the blockchain concept works out. Someone wants to register a transaction. I have received an offer. I say, guys, okay, I received your quotations around. I want to record it. Now, this quotation I pass on it is represented as a block in the shared ledger. So here is the ledger, the one which you're calling as a block. And this block is broadcast to all. Technically, let's say we are in the company, we have 50, 60 people who are concerned with this, and we have become the partner. We are on the nodes. So each block information goes to each one. And once it is verified by everybody, and now consensus could be given to everybody, consensus could be given to few people who are very important for it to make the speed faster. So now we say, guys, everybody say consensus says, okay, it's valid, provide consensus. And then the block gets cleared and the block gets filed over the previous one. So like this, more and more transaction comes, and one over the another one, the blocks gets piled up. They get connected. So single picture of the chain of the authorized participants are there around. So that means any record, any information, if you talk from procurement, supply chain, you want to see what is the country of origin. You want to see who made the requisition, who placed the orders on, from where it was bought on, what price it was bought on. Any information you want to know. Even if I'm talking on the fruit juices, I would say, okay, where the mango was grown, which tree it was grown, where it was grown, when it was taken out, when it was processed. All those informations are there. You are able to check the truth around. Your medical supplies are coming. You want to see what temperature they were exposed, what humidity they were exposed. You are able to see complete information on the chain. Once it is, consensus is there around. The consensus, when I talk around, it's a more democratic system. It's not one person saying, guys, okay, I accept it. Now, the only thing which is there in this chain, any transaction at the end of the day, there's a payment involved. Now, the payment today, all we go through the banks, and you know very well, the charges are there. They're a middleman. The middleman, the intermediary, they charge. So once tomorrow, let's say we have e-currency. I have in my wallet, let's say in my country, if you come up with the e-rupee around, e-rupee is nothing but saying the fiat rupee, the printed rupee. So printed rupee and e-rupee will look exactly the same, except one is a digital form, one is other form. So the system could have, you could have a wallet with whatever money is around. This could be a smart contract which could process the payment also. So since particularly presently we don't have many countries around, so I'm just putting a cross on this, but all other activities we can do. So the blockchain, as explained around, it transactions. The transaction is broadcast peer-to-peer. I mean, all people on the network, business network, they have it, they have a given consensus to it. Once the consensus is there, the transaction is approved, and the block is connected to the previous block. So this is how the chain of the blocks comes up. And if you are tomorrow going to have digital money, e-currencies, then that could also be hooked up. Now the question when we say consensus, consensus means there's a proof of work. Today we call goods receipt note. Done. I'm happy with the work. The work has been done satisfactorily. And that's what we call the proof of work. So there has to be the proof of the work. Somebody has to do it. We call them the miners. So they are the people who do the proof of work, guys. I've done the homework. This is okay. So there's another concept coming around the proof of stake now. It's chosen to determine the weight depending on its work. Suppose we have got many players around 50, 60 players, or maybe hundreds of players in the network, but then there are few players who are much more affected with the business. So they could take the risk around, guys, I clear it, I administratively approve it. So that's what we call the proof of stake around. So there's a proof of work. The typical proof of work, if you look around, which is used in the, we use the word mining, particularly for bit currencies, cryptocurrencies, it consumes a lot of power. Energy consumption is very high. So if I look from sustainability angle, it's a problem. That's what is one of the problems we are facing. Another one is the proof of stake, which can be used for many companies, big organizations. They can go with the proof of stake. But anything which is meant for the public, then it has to go for the proof of work. The blockchain nutshell, if I want to say around, the very first thing is the shared ledger. Cryptography, as we saw with the hash concepts, consensus. If any approval has to be given, it's a consensus by the network, and it's a shared contract. The contract is shared, so everybody knows authenticity, everybody knows the truth of it. And same thing if I put in the social media news-wise also, one organization was planned to come with the social media of that time, which will use blockchain. That means any information that we are able to know who created it, who validated it, so we can check that part. There is a truth behind it. Now, why blockchain? First thing is no unalterable copies around. Nobody can change the copies around. Real-time tracking. If my food supplies are coming, my medical supplies are coming, sitting in my office, I can see, guys, where it is. That I can know, we can do even now. But the truth is there that I'm able to check the data of temperature, the humidity, the packing, where it is. Otherwise, if there's no blockchain, anybody who's managing the shipping part, they can change the data. This are, yeah, they were exposed to this temperature. The vaccines were coming. They were at the minus 20 degrees C, but actually may not be. But with the blockchain, it cannot be played. It will be exact real data. And the real data goes through the sensors, to the clouds, and through cloud systems can collect. And if you can have artificial intelligence, it gives you the complete information where we are failing. No single point of failure. Even if I have lost the information, but my peers to peers, others are having the same ledger, so there's no loss of data set. Reduce the cost, trusted transaction, and no third party involved. No third party means no intermediary. Now, public and private blockchains, as the name indicates, if you're doing for public activities around, you need to be public. Everybody should be part to it. While in the case of private, the big companies, they will like to have, they don't want to go down to the whole world. They want to stay within their own organizations and call it a private blockchain. So it could be public blockchain, it could be private ones, it could be consortium, the mix of the two. Then again, in the network, we could have permission. Because we want to enhance the privacy also, particularly if I'm working with X group around, Y group, they have their own needs around. So their information, they want to keep some enhanced privacy. Whether the technology would be the blockchain, Within the organization, this would be very transparent. The truth would be there, but to ensure the privacies, improve the speed of it and operations, plus building the trust by using the blockchain, they could have permission then. If you're working with X corporation, Y corporation, they can say, guys, out of 40,000 people, I'm only allowing 10,000 people who will have access to the data, not to the whole world. Now, the technology which are coming around, obviously the very first one is Hyperledger. It's a Linux project. Now, Linux Foundation project is an open source project. That means if you and me want to get into this, it's open source available to you. You can modify it, change it to suit your application. So far, we have not come up with a uniform standard. That's the one is making it a little speed slower on this part. So this is more like an umbrella technology I would call around. You can use it. It came in 2015. So there are many companies who are taking up this and trying to improve advanced blockchain technology for cross-industry use in business. There are around 130 members of this around. It's curated by Linux Foundations. The purpose is to provide robust and efficient standards. So we hope once these common standards are there around, then it will be much easier to move faster. Now, there's another one called, one is Hyperledger, then Hyperledger Fabric. So there's a Hyperledger. So there are different types of technology which are coming down in this field. So some companies, let's say transport companies, they form their own group. And they're trying to use their own technology. I mean, Merck is a big one. So they will come up with their own technology. Others will follow around. So that's the way trend is going on. Now, Hyperledger Fabric is the next one, again, provides a framework for developing blockchain solution with the modular architectures, leverages open source best practices. So all of them are coming with open sources. Now come back to the application part. Applications, obviously cryptocurrency is one of them, trade finance is another one, legal is another one, banking, insurance, crowdfunding. The way we are trying to talk around in the supply chain. As I said to you, if you look at the global economy, 2/3 of the global economy depends on supply chain, where procurement is a part of it. So that's very important. Healthcare is a very important one. The food supply, which affects our health. If I'm buying an organic products, I want to know, is it really organic? I want to know the truth of it. So that's what becomes. So the use cases, the very first one comes the food and agriculture, which is picking up in India also, particularly the milk supply chain or some other food supply chain, people are coming up. They charge you extra money, but then they assure you that this is done like this. I remember one case we were looking at a month back on the award ceremony time. I was a jury guy. So there's a one guy who said, guys, okay, we make honey and we want to assure you this is the truth, authenticated one. So they came with the blockchain technology for that. The pharmaceuticals, manufacturing. Again, in the manufacturing, are we using authenticity? Are we using ethical practices around? We might be using some wrong things, and then this one shows you ethical practice. Who are the people behind it? Even if I'm getting the coffee beans, from which farms they are coming up, what price they are paying for it. Is the poor farmers getting a reasonable price? The middleman is coming out, so we can see all the ethical practices of the flow of the goods, including the data. Authenticity of raw materials, accurately track environmental impact. So the mining part, again, we can check. So there's a broad application which are picking up now, industry-wise, while other applications are there, elections are there, health sector is there around, the health records are there around, property records are there. So those are also being done. Even the UN is very active for the health, so the property records around. So they are done in many countries, those projects as well. Top companies leveraging blockchain. The Walmart, certainly they're looking at the food supply chain ecosystem. The Ford, they want to track the cobalt essential element of the battery cell. De Beers, again, they want to check the authenticity of that. UPS, track the package, transparency, efficiency. Federal Express. So many companies are coming around. I'm sure this is going to spread around very fast. Now, coming back to the GAIN contracts, the blockchain 2.0 MCON, second version of the blockchain. Now, these smart contracts are nothing but the computer protocols that facilitate, verify, enforce negotiation and performance of the contract. You signed a contract. Now, the performance of the contract will depend on getting the information, whether the activity has been completed or not, then processing the payment also. So this is all can be programmed. So I'm talking of basically the complex projects around where I have dealt around some cases, hundreds of activities. And for each activity, there are 5 suppliers feeding it. Keeping a track whether that activity is completed or that activity is going to be delayed because of X or Y supplier. That information is being processed through AI and the program. And once the activity is complete, the milestone says, yes, as per your definition, this complete and the payment should be processed. So that's what we call the smart contract. So it's a pre-programmed contract. If any one of you have seen your contract running into 20 pages, 30 pages. So each activity, the 20 pages mean I've got 100 milestones. For each milestone, I've got a pre-programmed contract. Chain of events. Execution, the value transfers, and settlement. So this whole activity, which takes a lot of time, can be cut short. So something which used to take traditionally, let's say 1 to 3 days, now it can be done in minutes in smart contract. Manual remittance, automate remittance. Once we have come with the e-currencies around, or digital currencies around, then this could be automatic remittance. Escrows may not be necessary. Fraction of the cost is very less. So it's a smart contract is an agreement and set of rules that govern the business standards. It's stored on the blockchain. Smart contracts may have many contractual clauses. Clause this. If you're delayed by 1 week, I'm going to penalize you for 10% of the amount. Contract knows it. I don't have to argue with the supplier. It's automatically system knows 1 week delay minus 10%. The system can do all that calculation. The purpose is to provide security superior to the traditional contract. The Internet of Things is another one. I think it's a wonderful combination of the blockchain and the IoT. IoT is eyes and ears of your supply chain. Like the example I was giving to you, let's say my medical supplies, my food supplies, the information about them, IoT. The Internet of Things through sensors, if I put a sensor for temperature, sensor for humidity, if that information is picked up, I can track and trace. Now solutions like barcodes are there, handled RFIDs are there, example of the automation of the data collection, fully automated system. Now overview of blockchain, supply chain. Now supply chains are global network. Particularly those who are dealing with the global ones, particularly one, I've got, let's say 100 suppliers feeding to me. And those 100 supplier inputs are going into my pocket. There are manufacturers, there are suppliers, there are logistic companies, there are retailers, all are together. And end product is one. As modern supply chain continue to expand, they are becoming more complex. I think there can't be better timing than last 2 years. We are seeing the desperate. All supply chains are having a problem around. One ship gets sunk in some way trouble in Suez Canal for weeks and weeks. Disruption. No delivery happening. So one side we're becoming global. Other side, it's also having the impact of it becoming complex and yes. And disruptions are happening very frequently. Traditional suppliers were using paper-based, disjointed systems, lead to information silos. I only know one information, let's say, about the country of origin. Another one has got about the pricing part. Other one has got whether the payment was done or not. So all those silo information is there around. With blockchain, that information gets hooked up into one block, a chain of blocks. So lack of traceability and transparency. The pain points which we had in the SCMs, logistics, traceability part, compliance part, the flexibility part, and managing the stakeholders. So we have the ones around stakeholders. So how do we manage them? The blockchain capabilities are there. I can do the auditability part. I can do the immutability. I can bring the smart contract. I can also bring this intermediation. I can remove the mediators. So this is the way survey was done by Foresters. And we got the feedback from most of the big companies around improved data integrity, supply chain, the blockchain in the digitization of papers, 85%. Automation of business processes, 84%. Single shared database, 38%. Tokenization of assets around 76%. So this is the data they collected around. So it looks like from this data that there's many companies moving into this direction. Because the last 2 years, we all have heard that digitalization has picked up momentum. Everybody knows we have to get digitalization great, but with digitalization, the negative part comes, we have the intermediary. The data could be played around. So if I use the blockchain technology, then that part that pain point I can remove. Why blockchain for supply chain? Now it's not always visible, available, or trusted. The data is not trusted. The guarantee the product authenticity is around. Increase supply chain transparency, build a resilient supply chain. That means if any unexpected thing happens, then that should not be having an impact on my whole chain. I want to see whether I can find another solution. If I'm much more visible, much more information available to me, I've got 50 suppliers feeding me, and then each one of them fails and my end product stops. My assembly line stops just because of one supplier. 49 have done a good job, but one has missed out. My whole thing stops. And that information, if I can get in advance, I can avoid the disruption. I can become much more, you can say, resilient also. Now look at the traditional supply chain, very straight line. Now the straight lines are going away, they're becoming into circles through the control towers. Supplier. Ethical certain, sourcing uncertain. I'm buying for my batteries the cobalt. Cobalt percentage has to be this and this. And then I don't know whether it's giving me 100% correct or not. And until I have to send somebody to test it, to check it. Or the lab where it was tested, I'm not sure the lab has given me the right report or not. Ethical sourcing. Environment, they might be using child labors around. I don't have that data around. Manufacturers. Environmental impacts unknown. The company which is making it, refining the material, raw material, I don't know what is the environmental impact. I can put those data and pull those information well in advance. Regulators, logistics, manual transport updates not available. Wholesalers, retailers, you can say all are the pyramids of informations, not connected together, because each are the different players. Now let's look at the benefit when we have a blockchain. Complete information of this one is available to me. The moment my sourcing starts from supplier, then I have a manufacturers. Complete information, regulator stage, logistics stage, wholesalers, retailers, I'm getting the blockchain. So blocks and blocks are connected together. So by the time I get it, all the blocks are connected together. I have complete information. So if it comes to my custom, they can track and trace. If customer wants to see it, they can also track and trace. Now let's look at another one complex one. I've got 3 suppliers feeding into the company. 3 is very small numbers. It could be much bigger numbers. If you talk about big companies around, hundreds of suppliers are feeding to. For each supplier, I'm having a certificate of origin. If I've got 100 suppliers, I need 100 certificate of origin, 100 batch numbers, 100 processing data. I could have a blockchain record. Then I could have the next one is a shipment date, order date, harmonized system numbers, code number, the barcode numbers, certificate again in the manufacturing. When I do, I again have to give my batch number and this one. You can see how many data are there. Very simplified form, I'm putting around 29 data. Now, in the case of blockchain, I've got again a group of this one. I've got 6 or 7 blockchain records. But then the information, when it comes to the smart contract, I could simplify still further. So this is where the whole chain is becoming smart. And so far I've shown you the straight line. The future is coming around, guys. Why put them in the linear path? Put them into the circular path through the control towers. Everybody knows the information. The whole chain which you see around, from the tier 2, tier 3 suppliers till the customers, all are through control. So the complete information is available to everyone at one time. Customer also knows if this item is stuck in somewhere, in the mining and the product is not clear, they can plan for something. I'm a customer. I'm in the control, connected to the control tower. I know very well this item is stuck in dock. The dock has gone on strike. That means this is going to get delayed. I can plan for something else. So that means it improves my resilience. So everyone, the warehouses, the transport, stores, docks, suppliers, shipping, everyone is through the control tower. So in short, if you look around in this one, you can see that the blockchain, the traditional supply chain, we have an order and confirmation between producer and distributors. Everybody is planning, everybody doing order and order confirmation, but each stage, there's a friction of data. Inventories are piling up because the information what customer gives you, retailer increases. So there is compliance is limited. Now, in the case of digital system, everybody gets the same information. Less of friction, less of errors. So it becomes much more intelligent control tower. So if we have a blockchain and this type of digital system, you could have the digital system like this, the control tower, even without blockchain, but with the blockchain, you add the authenticity part. That's all. Tracking the food from from farm to fork, this is again from the Walmart. You can see around from the farm, where it was grown, packing house, transportation, the border crossing, which date, when, what temperatures, processing, and then you get it. So in such situation, you say, guys, I don't mind paying extra because I'm assured that the product is real and authentic. Now, coming back to the procurement. Procurement is again part of the supply chain as a whole. So particularly when it comes to procurement, public sector, there is major focus on procurement. The transparency is required. You want the security of the data around. So nobody changes the data around. Whatever is the data of temperature, time, everything time stamped around, efficiencies, and collaboration. When we work as a trust. So tracking of the data, the way I was showing you, the shipment coming through various containers. I have the thermometers, I have this. So basically I have IoTs and sensor. I could have a sensor for temperature. I could have a sensor for humidity. All that information is picked up and then it goes to the blockchain nodes. So in the nodes, whosoever are players, who are the people affected, they are having the information. Procure to pay, the whole process. Again, if you go through the blockchain, at every step, Now there are 25, 30 activities around, starting from allow vendor to update the master data, allow the catalog and purchase systems, and all the activities around where the blockchain could help it. So that's the way. The impact part is shown in the highest one, the payment side, validation side. Blockchain logistics also same story, that you have the factory, supplier, logistics, long haul, warehouse, complete certificate of loading, batch number, processing data, packing list, complete, which you are getting today. But again, they're in silos. But once I go through the block, they're all connected together. So all 25, 30 transactions which are talking around, they're all in the blocks. I don't need too many different papers. They're all digital documentation, no paper at all. And everything is there. Key to successful integrations, keep in mind there are 3 steps around. The very first step would be to start a company. Internal blockchain should give up to get accustomed to technology. Now in the blockchain, if you look at the whole supply chain, there are many activities which are within your premise. Some activities are with the neighboring, like logistic company, the wholesalers. So don't start the blockchain end to end. The complexity is around because you have to change the mindset of people. So let's start with the blockchain first, with those activities which are within my organization. I receive the goods, I move the goods from warehouse, from the store to the manufacturing, from manufacturing to the warehouse. Those activities which are within my company, I could do with the blockchain. Later on, when I get accustomed to it, I get used to it, then I can take the adjacent part, like logistic companies, direct supplier, not tier 2 supplier, tier 1 only. Slowly, then later on, I can add tier 2, tier 3, or supplier, customer roles. So you have to go through 3 steps. So 1, within your company first, let people get used to it. Number 2, add the company which are surrounding you. And then 3 means go to end to end. If I want to go to the food chain, then I'll go to the farmer also, who grows the food. I can have the truth, everything around. Who grows it, at what price he does, and who buys it, and who sells it. The complete authenticity is there. The concluding remarks, if I want to say around, blockchain for supply chain is still in early stages. Now, leaders are turning to blockchain as their firms continue to modernize and digitize supply chain. Blockchain component is only one part of the solution. So we need to assess the business challenges blockchain poses. I mean, technology is one thing, but then keep in mind when you want to bring into the business, there are going to be other challenges. The process flow. You just say, can't, okay, guys, let me have a technology run. Same thing happened, I remember 2005, when we were implementing worldwide our ERP system in 160 countries around. So we were looking around, guys, ERP is not the solution for everything. ERP is yes, but before that, I have to change my processes. I have to train my people. The same case here also, I would say, agree on a process flow, end to end. How do you want the process to flow? Which documents will come through the blockchain? Which will come through this? Developing appropriate governance model. Who is governing it? And establishing the required, again, legal agreements also. Because with whomsoever you are asking about information, you need to develop the legal agreements also. If I want to make a smart contract, I have to make a legal agreement. So realizing full potential requires a degree of understanding, a lot of knowledge about it. That's all I will say around. Well, friend, with this, I want to thank you all. And the key takeaways, I would say, is the blockchain is ongoing revolution. It's also going through changes, let me be honest with you. Like smart contract, a few years back, it came around. Now, new developments are also coming around. The blockchain establishes, for any domains, is threatening the middleman actors. Basically, one line, if I have to put around, the blockchain means removing the middleman. No intermediator, straight dealing with the persons. Blockchain will boost economic growth and prosperity. So if I have to compare it up, it is more like a democratic system where each and every person has a right. The same way here also, in a democratic flow of the things around, It's a democratic system. It's much more truthful and much more reliable. Well, friends, we thanks you all for the patient hearing.